Hello everybody, my name is Mateo Leon Rodriguez and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be jumping into Project Space Pits, which means I finally get to crack into this notebook. Well, let's get started. So as you can see, this is a bit of a different setup. I'm actually at my kitchen table right now. I don't have a desk to write at, so that's where we're writing. What I want to focus on in this writing session is three things. So number one, I want to focus on the world building. Number two, I want to focus on the characters. And number three, I want to focus on the plot. Before I move forward with anything else, let me just kind of talk about what Project Space Pits is. So Project Space Pits is a sci-fi romance following Jane Soul, a hardworking student at the Planetary School of Sciences, and Tobias Andromedous, who is a space pet shop owner. Alright, let's go ahead and crack this thing open. So in this first page, what I think I want to do first is name it. So we're going to put Project Space Pits. There. Now we know exactly what project is for. So I think on this first page, or at least these first few pages, what I want to do is actually go back to this complete the storybook and write down what I wrote for the prompt that I did, because it was the inspiration for Project Space Pits. You actually go back and look at the video, because I did a making writing prompts more sci-fi. If you watch that video, you could see the inspiration for Jane and actually read out what I wrote on there. But yeah, I think it would be useful for me to write that down just so I don't have to go back and look at this book every single time I want to look back at the inspiration. Okay, so it took me a while, but I finally got it done. Everything is down on these 2 pages. So, that being said, let's get into the character info and backstory of Jane Soul. Okay, so I went ahead and made like a little character info sheet thing. I'm a discovery writer, so this is kind of basic, but essentially for all the characters, I have age, pronouns, height, physical appearance, wants, needs, personality, and then any backstory/info. So starting off with age, Jane is 24 at the start of the story. Her pronouns, height is 5'4". Physical appearance, I kind of struggle with appearances in books, really, but I think what I'm imagining is a short, frizzy slash curly brown hair, usually in a ponytail. What else? Brown eyes. And I think square face. Again, I'm kind of bad at describing the characters. I can imagine them in my head, but putting them on paper is a bit more complicated. So, for once, what Jane wants is to one day have her research published. And what her research is basically saying that even plasma-based beings or entities or creatures can still be sentient. Because right now a lot of the plasma-based beings are kind of seen as, you know, just cells, not intellectual at all. But she wants to prove that they are. So that's what one of her goals is. And another one is to avoid getting married. Okay, moving on to needs. One thing that Jane needs is to relax, because honestly she spends most of her time studying and doing research and everything. She does not really spend time relaxing or doing anything. She's just been so focused on trying her best not to get forced into marriage and also doing her research paper that she doesn't have time to relax. So I think that's one thing that she needs in the story. The first thing I put down for personality was sassy, because she did not get through the Planetary School of Sciences fauna course, being the only woman there, just by standing around and doing nothing. So she is very much sassy. She will defend herself. She has a cold exterior. Of course, she wants to be friends with people and everything, but it's just most of the time she's focused and she does not want anybody to hurt her, so that's why she has a bit of a cold exterior. I would also add caring. I'm about to get into it with the backstory, but she cares deeply about her little space pet. So yeah, I would put caring under personality as well. Okay, so lastly, let's get into some backstory/info, and I'm kind of going to go in timeline order for the events that I know. So for one, her parents married young and had her young. Had her young. And because of this, they expect the same thing out of her. They didn't used to always be so on top of her for getting married, but her older brother married off-planet, which essentially means that her brother married an alien. Still a humanoid one, but he married an alien, because in this universe, space travel is very common. Aliens are all over the place. So yeah, her brother married off-planet, so now her parents want grandchildren, and so they heavily encourage Jane to have kids. And getting into more modern times, she was accepted into the Planetary School of Sciences, which is hard to do. Into Planetary School of Sciences. And while doing some research, she stumbles upon what I'm calling a plasmoid for now, but essentially it's a little green blob that she keeps as a pet. And this little green blob, originally in this draft over here, in this prompt, was called Vin, but I don't think I want Vin as the name, just because Vin is already a very popular name in Mistborn, I think. I haven't read Mistborn, but I think that's what the character's called. So it's best not to associate the two for whatever reason. So I'm gonna have to come up with another name for this little green blob. But yeah. The thing is that this plasmid being in particular, this little green blob, is very rare. And she wasn't supposed to take anything home with her, but she did. So now her big secret is she has this blob, and if anyone finds out, they are going to arrest her, but also probably take this little green blob away, experiment on it, or do whatever. So throughout the story, she's trying to hide this little green blob. So yeah, those are the basics for Jane that I can think of in this moment. Okay, so in order to save time a little bit, I decided to write everything off screen for Tobias, because I also got the idea from one of the prompts that I wrote in a different video. So yeah. So the name of the male main character is Tobias Andromedous. He is 27. He uses he, him pronouns. He is 5 feet 8 inches tall. So physical appearance, he's kind of lanky. He has like a little bit of muscle, but not much. Besides that, he has dirty blonde / reddish short hair. And has brown eyes. Again, the descriptions may change. I'm not really good at the character details, but yeah. So things that he wants. So he wants his family's business to be successful. And he also wants to one day adopt and sorry, brain fart. wants to adopt a creature named Luna. I don't remember the actual technical name I gave it, but essentially it's a giant Great Dane / German Shepherd like thing with shaggy hair and a crescent shaped moon. And there's a specific one named Luna that he's been taking care of for a while but has never been able to adopt out. He wants to adopt her himself, but because Tobias lives in an apartment, he can't have this giant, heavy, just, dog or creature or whatever in his apartment. So yeah, one of the things he wants is to one day move out and adopt her. Thing that he needs is help. So I'll get into it a little bit in the backstory, but Tobias runs a pet shop, and he runs this pet shop by himself. That's what the family business is. Why does he, have to run it by himself? It's because his parents died, and he's the one taking care of everything. So for personality, I would say that Tobias is caring and also very bubbly / positive. With everything going on, he always tries to stay positive, especially because he knows that if he isn't positive and is like fearful or negative, the animals in his pet shop will feed off of that and not respect him or be afraid of him or whatever. So that's why he always tries to stay positive and like bubbly. So yeah, let me get into the actual backstory. So like I said, his parents died and he inherited I'm bad at spelling. He inherited the pet shop. So now he is trying his best to take care of it. And that's essentially like the biggest backstory thing that he has. But we'll move on to plot stuff. Okay, so I took the liberty of writing down the plot because I felt like I would forget most of it if I didn't write it down. But let me just go over what happens in the plot. So the first thing that happens timeline-wise is that a guy named Marcus, who is part of Jane's school, he's kind of the favorite student and everything, but he's kind of a dick. So yeah, Marcus visits Tobias' shop looking for a rare creature. He finds one. This rare creature is essentially like a shapeshifter, but can kind of take in like, stars and stuff or plasma to look like a plasma or like a starry version of whatever creature it wants. But yeah, that's the rare creature. So Marcus, being a rich kid, offers Tobias a whole bunch of money, but Tobias refuses because he does not trust Marcus. He gets bad advice from him. So Tobias says no. Marcus then breaks in and steals this creature, but in the process ends up dropping the pin to the Planetary School of Sciences, where he goes to school. So yeah, so Tobias looks up where the pin is from, and then we have the meet cute between Jane and Tobias. They both get to talking, they both agree that they have to stop Marcus, and they discover a bigger animal smuggling ring. That's as far as I've gotten on the plot so far, but while writing everything down, I think a part of the reason, apart from the more reasons that they might want to stop the animal smuggling ring, is that there is potential, like, money that they can get from turning people in. And Jane can use that to fund research, and Tobias can use it to support the shop. And then also probably buy a house or something so he could adopt Luna. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at with the plot so far. I'm going to figure out, hopefully at some point while I'm writing, but this is the basic overlook of the plot. Okay, last up, let's talk about world building. So first things first, space travel is just common. Space travel is common. Aliens visit frequently. Some people have even gotten married to these aliens, including Jane's brother, who married a humanoid. Aliens. But obviously, despite being married, they can't physically have kids because they're different species. Technology is pretty advanced. So we're talking teleportation pads, we're talking force fields, and then spaceships. Stuff like that. So in terms of like science versus fiction, it's definitely more fiction in the science fiction word. But yeah, one piece of interesting technology is actually gauntlets that Tobias has. So the reason for these gauntlets is so that Tobias has more help around the pet shop. So these gauntlets can blow air. They have, a razor, just scissors. They're basically multi-purpose tools. Tobias uses these gauntlets to, for one, groom the dogs that are there, cut their hair, cut their nails, stuff like that, because he just has access to all these things in the gauntlets. But also, he has a sort of force field plasma bubble that he can just kind of throw out. And this plasma bubble can just basically trap things in this plasma-like bubble, but it's only for a limited amount of time. You can't keep them in there forever. So yeah, but that's some of the things that his gauntlets do. Besides that, there are also different Earth-like planets that have interesting ecosystems. Beyond that, though, the world government, essentially, or the galactic government at this point, has kind of terraformed a lot of the planets. So people live just everywhere. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot more fiction going on. I think it's fun. I think that that's what this sci-fi romance is supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun. Obviously, I'm going to try to flesh things out more, but yeah, that's what I have so far in terms of world building. Okay, guys, so yeah, that's all the plotting slash world building slash character stuff that I have so far for Project Space Pets. I would love to know what you think so far out of everything, and also if you guys could give me tips on how to expand the characters more outside of obviously just writing them. If you have those tips, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I am very excited about this project, and if you are too, feel free to subscribe. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. This is Mateo Leon Rodriguez, Authortube extraordinaire. Thank you for watching my video. You could find another one there.